Good morning, my happy little ramblers. Welcome to Reese Rambles episode 60, and welcome to another weekend, of course. This is the official podcast of Control Alt Reese. I have to do all of that intro every time I do this, even though you all know who I am. But hello, here I am. And of course, big news this week, and a real game changer in the world of gaming, if you pardon the pun. I'm going to go straight in with a news story because this is really important stuff. It has been announced this week that Lara Croft is the most iconic video game character of all time by BAFTA. Yeah, BAFTA. I mean, they know what they're talking about, don't they? So, yeah, a bit of a weird story, this, but I thought I'd get it out of the way because most iconic video game character of all time. I mean, she's certainly a strong contender. I think most people would be familiar with Lara Croft. And, of course, there's been movies and games and all sorts over the years. I mean, when was the first game? It's like 97? Obviously, I've had some interesting experiences just lately with the Tomb Raider remaster, which I didn't get on with. But Lara Croft as the most iconic. Obviously, Mario in second place. I mean, I suppose it would be quite boring if Mario just won it. But But yeah, there's some really odd stuff in this list. So like number 3, Agent 47 from Hitman, above Sonic the Hedgehog in 4th place. And then Sackboy from Little Big Planet. Pac-Man, yeah, good contender. Link, Legend of Zelda, Master Chief, I guess. And then they've got a load of people, obviously Pikachu and Steve from Minecraft. But I don't know who any of these people are. Who are they? Who are they? This is all modern stuff, but I'm old. I have to face the facts here. And this is a public poll, so who am I to disagree with the public at large? But just thought that was a really interesting result. But one thing I will point out, one thing that I kind of wanted to acknowledge really, is that of course Lara Croft is she's a British invention. She's a British character from a British gaming studio, and what was originally a very thoroughly British game. So I suppose we could celebrate that, couldn't we? As the people of Britain, we could celebrate this small win. God knows we need some small wins just lately. So that's a thing. And in other big news today, my internet at home has been fixed, which I'm sure you're all very pleased to hear about. We've had some problems over the past few days. It's been horrifically slow. The connection's been down most of the time, and when it has connected, it's been like 4 or 5 megasecond, zero kind of upstream bandwidth at all, and it's just been pretty much unusable. And they sent out, I called up and complained, and OpenReach, the people who manage the internet and the telephone infrastructure here in the UK, sent a man out first thing this morning. I only reported it like yesterday afternoon. And they sent someone out first thing this morning, did some tests on the line, discovered there was indeed a fault on our line. And it turns out that, to cut a very long story short, the overhead line that goes from our house to the pole in the street, there was actually a fault at the junction box at the top of that pole. Water had been getting in over the years, and it had corroded some of the connections, and it had corroded our cable, and apparently there was enough spare cable in there that he could strip it back and reconnect it with some nice fresh copper, and it was all sorted, which was very, very nice of him. It was very nice of him to actually just get his ladder out and just go to the top of the pole and fix it, rather than trying to schedule another appointment or palm it off on someone else. So excellent customer service, and actually our internet, since it's come back up, is actually the fastest it's ever been. I mean, it's not going to win any awards or blow anyone away with its getting on for 30 megasecond, but considering it was 20 before, it's like a third faster than it was. So evidently it has been an issue for a very long time. So very pleased about that. Fantastic start to the weekend for me. And one other thing, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll probably notice that I'm using a slightly different lens. Or you probably wouldn't notice that, because that would be an incredibly sad thing to notice. But got my Sony lens on because I've been filming a follow-up to a video which I'm going to be talking about very shortly. And it's a bit more of a return to form and a bit less of a kind of cynical engagement bait type video. So, you know what? Let's talk about that video now. So first, I want to give a really big shout out to the individual responsible for all of this madness, and that is Steve from Steve's Tech Shed, a very active member of my Discord community and big supporter of my channel, and a really nice bloke as well, who's really into his IBM stuff. and old, vintage PC stuff, but IBM in particular. And if you like my channel, you'll like his channel a lot. So I can highly recommend it. I'm going to link to that right at the top of the list of links for this week. And go and check him out. Go and check him out because, hey, he's a top bloke and he does some good stuff. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't now be the proud owner of this ridiculous Doom desk that you see behind me. But yeah, that's the opening topic. Of course, I have a video out, and I always talk about my latest releases in the Rambles, just before we get into the news stories and things. And yeah, so he posted this on my Discord quite a while back, and it was £60 on eBay. And I was looking at it, and I was thinking, this looks interesting. This looks like my kind of thing. It looks like I could do something fun and something a bit different with it. But yeah, 60 quid, it was like, not sure. And yeah, then it was reduced because obviously I watched it on eBay and I got a notification saying that the price had been halved to 30 quid. And I thought, £30. I looked at the location and it was about an hour's drive from where I live, which is kind of a, must have been some kind of sign. And I thought, you know what, I'll send the guy a message. There was something in the description about it being in a community centre and they needed to get it out of the way because the community centre was being demolished. And yeah, I sent him a message and he said, yeah, basically the demolition is imminent and if you don't come and fetch it now, it's just going to be demolished along with the rest of the building. And I thought, you know what, let's go and get it. So I did. This video is kind of a different format for my channel, really, because it kind of starts off with this vlog type thing about the story of the desk and kind of some driving footage and stuff of me going and picking it up and unloading it. And I must admit, this whole thing has kind of been engineered as a bit of shameless clickbait and engagement bait, just to try and get my name out there and get my channel out there. You've got to do these things every so often. You want to be a YouTuber, you've got to play the game. That's my top tip. And yeah, so I thought, well, I'll run Doom on it. I'll make that the focus of the first video that I do with this thing. It's not, I found this PC desk and restored it. As interesting as that would have been, and obviously there is that is covered in the video, or me trying to cover the history of the desk itself and the manufacturer time, which were quite a big sort of British PC brand back in the day. I thought, no, let's run Doom on it. Let's make that kind of the single focus of the video, because running Doom on weird and wonderful things is a meme. It's something that gets covered quite a lot. Every time someone runs Doom on something interesting, it ends up being covered in the gaming press and whatnot. And I thought, cynically, if I do this, maybe it'll get some coverage. And you know what? It did. In fact, it made it to the first page of Tom's Hardware. In fact, I was actually sat in the evening and I was scrolling through my phone, and obviously you've got the news thing where you got the news stories, and I saw something. And it usually recommends my own videos to me anyway. But it wasn't the thumbnail and it wasn't a YouTube link. It was a screenshot from the video, and it was like a different title. And I thought, that looks familiar. And then I spotted it said tomshardware.com, and I thought, Tom's Hardware, that's quite a big name. I mean, I've heard of them. I've used their website before. They do their GPU hierarchy thing that they constantly update, which I always look at whenever I'm looking at GPUs, and have done for about the past 15, 20 years. I mean, Tom's Hardware has been around forever. And yeah, it's quite a big, reputable name. And yes, here I am on the homepage. So they've got these 5 featured stories here. One about RISC-V CPUs. Was it RISC-V? I never know. We've got hands-on with some Qualcomm chips, golden CPU sockets, something to do with, I don't know, Intel employee flights. And then, yeah, the 5th biggest story, rescued retro desk PC becomes the latest device to run Doom. AMD Dual-Run-based system unsurprisingly lets you shotgun blast imps without major issues. Well, apart from the audio not working and the various other major issues that I ran into in the video. But yeah, no, I must say, actually, the person that's written this has evidently watched the video and they've made a lot of notes. And yeah, they've covered it quite positively and covered all kind of the major points and stuff, which is really nice, and linked directly to the video, which is fantastic. I mean, it's so cool to get some kind of mainstream coverage of my channel. Of course, it all helps, hopefully helps with the YouTube algorithm itself. It hasn't directly led to a lot of extra views. I think it was like 600 when I looked at the analytics. But of course, it all pumps the video up, all pumps the channel up. And yeah, that has led to over 5,000 views in the first 24 hours. It's only been 24 hours since this went up, and that is absolutely fantastic. That puts it in the #1 spot out of all of my most recent releases. By far my most popular video this year so far, and who knows where it might go. I mean, quite often we see that after an initial bump like this, things go quiet for a bit, and then YouTube gives it a massive push. And all the signs are good. I'll show you some of the stats that I like to look at with these things. Of course, we've got the views are up 59% thing, which is great. What's going on? More views from recommendations, higher click-through rate. Click-through rate, of course, being the percentage of people who click on the video when it pops up in their recommendations, and longer average view duration. But what I'm really, really pleased with is this, and this is the retention graph. So usually a retention graph on YouTube, you have a lot of people start watching at the beginning, and then by the end of the video, most of them have dropped off. And it goes down in a diagonal line. But this one doesn't. This one's flat. So obviously there's that big initial drop off, and that's always going to happen, and it's not anything to worry about at all. But after the first minute, once things have settled, we've got 58% of people still watching. And it does take less than a minute to get going, this video. I did try to keep the intro as short and as snappy as possible. After the first minute, we've got 58% of people still watching. And then right at the end, we've got 58% of people still watching. I mean, it's completely flat. All those people, if you make it through the first minute of the video, you're going to watch it all the way to the end. And that's crazy. That's an incredibly strong sign for the YouTube algorithm. So hopefully that will result in a bit of a second push for this, bit of a second wind. It's been served up to 43,000 people, and 5.7% of those have decided to click on it because of this amazing thumbnail that I came up with that says knee deep in the desk. Of course, a play on the title of the first episode of Doom, which is Knee Deep in the Dead. And yeah, just really pleased with that. So I just wanted to talk about that because, of course, I always talk about my new releases and whatnot. And just one more thing while I'm talking about myself, and just something that I kind of want to make you aware of. I decided to do a quarterly roundup the other day, yesterday in fact, and this is basically everything that I've released. Oh, there's the sandwich van. Oh, I haven't heard the sandwich van for a few episodes, have we? This is everything. Okay, you can be quiet now. Thank you. So this is everything that I've released on all of my channels for the first 3 months of 2024, because I wanted to kind of hold myself accountable a bit, really, and I do explain that in the post. This is over on Patreon, but it's free to view, and this isn't some kind of cynical attempt at getting people to sign up for Patreon or whatever. It just seemed like the best place to host it, and it meant that it would get sent out to all of my supporters and stuff without any extra effort on my part, which is always good. But yeah, so I counted them all up, and I've released, 17 videos so far this year, which is kind of crazy. That's kind of a lot of videos, and that does include the lower effort second channel videos, and it does include the supporter exclusive videos that I've done. Of course, they go out on the second channel as well. But strong start. January, we've got 5 videos here. I put the view counts for the videos in here as well, where they're public ones. My Atari VCS video that got over 10,000 views, or has over 10,000 views so far. Obviously, it's still going. February, six videos. So we've got the second channel stuff. They only tend to get sort of low 1,000, 2,000 or so views, which is absolutely fine for a channel of its size. The interview that I did with Action Retro, 3,863. And then the 2600 cart numbering thing, which was quite a silly video, just a bit of fun. But 23,000 views on that one. So really strong start to the year on my main channel. 6 more videos in March. We've got the Pie Dog review that did 4,186. Quite good for a sponsored video. Was that the biggest one? There's the PC98 Part 2, which has a similar number of views, but of course that's only been out for a week now, so I guess that one's going to build up steam as time goes on. And then, of course, I talk about the Rambles, which I didn't include in that count, so there are 17 further videos in the form of these weekly Rambles that I do. So yeah, how much stuff have I put out there already this year? I mean, it's crazy. And then I talk a little bit about a bit of an upcoming writing project, which I can't really discuss the details of, but some more stuff going on that side as well. So it was really good. It was a really good exercise, I think, to kind of reflect on this and see the stuff that I've been doing and just how much work I've been putting into the channel so far this year, because I even surprised myself with this, and it's been a really big motivator to kind of get on with stuff. Of course, the Doom Desk PC was only a week after the PC 98 Part 2 video, and hopefully I can put something together to release next week as well. I don't really want to commit to weekly releases, but I am feeling super motivated. Obviously, I've kind of lost half a day because of the internet issues, but yeah, so I will link to that if you want to go and check it out. Obviously, a nice roundup of all of my videos so far if you want to see what I've put out. Of course, if you've missed any of them, you can go back and watch them if you like. And yeah, just quite a nice little moment of self-reflection there. But without further ado, let's get on with some more news stories, shall we? Now, if you've been watching my channels for any length of time, you'll know that I'm quite keen on game preservation, as in making games available for people to play and people to enjoy long after they're abandoned by their original publishers. Of course, there's this whole grey area to do with emulation of stuff that's kind of currently available, and people like Nintendo who want to keep selling the same old games back to us generation after generation. But that's not what this is about. And this is something that's come up on my radar quite a few times over the past week, and something that I kind of wanted to shine a spotlight on because I think it's a good idea. I think I generally agree with the thrust of what they're going for here. There might be some slight implementation details, and they might be kind of making it out to be a lot easier than it is. But I'm on board with this, and I wanted to bring some attention to it. So this is called Stop Killing Games, and of course I will link to this as with everything else. StopKillingGames.com. And essentially what happened is there was a game called The Crew, which was released by Ubisoft. And it had an active player base of 12 million people. And Ubisoft shut down the servers and basically said, we've supported this for as long as we're obliged to, and we don't want to support it anymore. 12 million people suddenly left out in the cold with a game that they paid good money for, which isn't, it seems quite unreasonable. And I think from what I've seen of this story as well, the game was still kind of actively being sold, and some people bought it, and then months later, the servers were gone and couldn't play it at all anymore because it relied on the servers to actually function. And what this is kind of a bit of a legal movement, really, to petition governments to put in place kind of minimum acceptable support periods for these games, for the online component of these games. But also, more importantly, and kind of the main focus of it, is how to handle the shutting down of those games and make those servers, if the game does rely on a server, obviously releasing patches so people can patch that requirement out if the game is still playable without that, or releasing source code for servers, or some kind of way for other people to take over the running of those servers. So the people who actually paid for the game can reasonably expect to be able to play it in some form or another. Of course, I've covered like Insignia, which is the Xbox Live, the re-implementation of the original Xbox Live, which is a really cool project. And it's very much along those lines, like the Xbox 360, for example, is going to be, they're shutting down the store and everything in the near future. I haven't checked the dates because, of course, I'm always very badly prepared for these things. But, if this was in place and there were legal requirements and things in place for Microsoft to kind of handle this, then they would make some kind of third-party server available or some kind of open source thing available so people could still continue to use their Xbox 360s that they paid for. I mean, you might say, well, it's been 20 years, they've had more than their money's worth out of them, but I do think this is generally a good and noble cause. And I do kind of agree with the thrust of it. So still very early days yet. They are still kind of getting this all set up. But I will link to this. There's also a video on this, which I will link to if you would prefer to hear about it all in video form. Haven't got it up because, of course, I'm completely unprepared. But yeah, just wanted to shine a spotlight on that and kind of let people know that it was a thing. Because it's been coming up in my various feeds and things this week. And it sounds important. So some very good news this week for retro gamers coming from, of all places, CEX. I know, right, CEX. Let's take a look at them. So, of course, CEX is a high street retailer. Been around since 1992, apparently, according to Wikipedia, when they were first started in London as the Computer Exchange. And basically, they're like a glorified pawn shop. So you can take your old games and electronics and consoles and stuff, and you can trade them in, and hopefully they'll give you a good price. They do have a bit of a reputation for kind of lowballing people on the trade-ins and then selling them for quite a big markup. You have to bear in mind, they do actually test everything, and they do give you a warranty and stuff on the stuff that they sell. So a bit of a mixed bag, but yeah, I'm not particularly a customer of theirs myself. I think I bought some stuff from their website a few years ago. Anyway, it was a British company, and they're starting to spread all over the world. So they've got, I think it said 390 stores in the UK and a further 230 internationally. And they've got stores in the UK, Spain, Ireland, Mexico, Australia, Portugal, India, the Netherlands, Poland, Italy, Canary Islands, and 2 in Malaysia, apparently. And that's the complete list from Wikipedia. Now, say what you will about CEX, I think they provide quite a good service. The fact that you can actually go in and physically look at and touch the stuff is quite nice in this day and age. I know sometimes you see photos online of ridiculously expensive, like a Game Boy in the window for 200 quid or whatever. But I do know a lot of very happy customers of CEX. So, yeah, I think they're doing a good thing. And they've announced this week that they are partnering with a company called Tech Centre to do retro repairs. So, yeah, if you've got an old, an old console or something, and it breaks, and you're not confident repairing it yourself, perhaps not happy with wielding a soldering iron or whatever, which is perfectly fair. You can take it to your local CEX, and rather than trading it in as faulty and then giving you absolute peanuts for it, they can offer to repair it for you and give it back to you, which I think is quite a cool service, isn't it? Tech Centre says it's logged 200,000 repairs to date across its European business. This is on Eurogamer.net. And caters to current and retro consoles, everything from Atari to NES to PlayStation and Steam. Age is definitely a consideration, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I would have thought that the older stuff would be easier to repair based on personal experience. But you go through to the Tech Centre website, and they will actually give you a 2-year warranty on all of their repairs, which is great. They'll give you online tracking. It's no fix, no fee, which is really cool. And you can actually get an online quote before you even send anything off to them or drop it off at your local CEX. You can get an instant quote, so you can pick your console. You can go through and you can say, okay, I've got a console, I've got a Sony, it's everything up to the PS5, got a PS2. And I believe, $39.99. I was going to say a friend went through this a few days ago. So based on the options you have selected, so you don't even have to tell them what's wrong with it. Basically, you just drop off your PlayStation 2 with whatever fault it has, and they fix it for $39.99, including VAT, 7-day turnaround, and drop it off at CEX and pick it up when it's done. Really cool service, and I've not seen anything like this before, particularly for the retro stuff, so just kind of wanted to draw some attention to that. And it looks like they cover, I guess there's a kind of a specific list of things that they cover. Let's just, we'll go into the other category. Atari Jaguar CD. Imagine if they could fix your Jaguar CD for you. $39.99, there you go. So you buy a broken Jaguar CD, which basically they pretty much all are at this point. Send it off to these people and they will fix it for you for $39.99. Not sure which technicians are actually using to repair this stuff. It'd be interesting to see some of it maybe pop up on people's YouTube channels and things. I'm not quite sure how that works. But look at this. Sega Saturn. They've got the Sega Multi-Mega. Obviously, they've got Mega Drives, they've got the Master System. Predominantly Sega stuff by the looks of it. In fact, that's all Sega stuff. Did I go into the Sega category somehow? Or does other just mean Sega? Funny considering the write-up mentioned Atari specifically, but there we go. We've got the Atari Lynx on there as well. Imagine if they could fix your Atari Lynx. £0. Oh, okay. So $39.99 if you want to repair the screen, or $39.99. I'm sensing a pattern here. $39.99 for them to repair any issue with any console, and you can't say fairer than that, can you? So I am a man of many podcasts, and I don't mean that I present many podcasts or that I appear on many podcasts, but I do listen to a lot of podcasts. When I'm here in the studio working on stuff, and when I'm in the car, and when I'm in the kitchen doing some cooking, I always have a podcast on in the background that I'm kind of half listening to, something I've talked about before. Good background noise and all the rest of it, and of course a lot of them have a video element as well. And I do actually watch quite a lot of podcasts on YouTube as well. I think it's a really good format. And so I was very interested to see that another one was coming back. Originally a TV show from back in the day. In fact, a bit of a British TV institution, and that is the Gadget show. We'll get straight into it. Of course, Jason Bradbury is behind this. You can see his beautiful shiny head there. And so this was on Channel 5 back in the day, back on TV, and I've actually worked with Jason Bradbury. I need to mention this. Whenever his name comes up, I need to talk about this because I'm very proud of this fact. And the first video that I ever made on my YouTube channel was actually a console. It was an Atari 2600 that I modified for him to use on his Instagram page. He was really big on Instagram at the time. He's still very active on there. I think he was kind of between presenting jobs at the time. And yeah, modded that console for him. And I also did a Famicom for him as well. And they do still appear fairly regularly on his Instagram feed, which is quite cool to see. So yeah, I follow him and I saw this announcement and I thought, this looks really interesting. Gadget Show, of course, covered all the latest and greatest gadgets and technology, stuff like that. And the original presenters kind of moved on and it kind of ended up descending into this whole sponsored thing where they did these ridiculously big giveaways and just sang the praises of anyone who'd shove a bit of money and a bit of free technology their way. But hopefully it's back and the signs are looking promising. We've got the original presenters in charge, Jason Bradbury and Susie Perry. And from what I've seen so far, they're doing a great job. One thing that I did want to point out here on their YouTube channel page is this amazing Photoshop job. I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks back there was that whole controversy around the Catherine, the Princess of Wales, whatever her name is, and she photoshopped a picture of her and her kids, claimed that she'd done it herself. I don't know if they got her to make this YouTube banner. Quite likely, I'm not quite sure what is going on here. I've looked at this quite a lot now, probably a bit more than I'd like to admit. I mean, it is Susie Perry, and yeah, I can't get my head around what's supposed to be going on there. But anyway, I'm pleased to report that the podcast itself is actually pretty good. So they've got a few episodes out so far, covering a few different topics. They've taken a slightly different approach on their YouTube channel and kind of released it as a series of short, sort of 10-minute clips. They've got the full 40-minute episode as well, their pilot episode, but they've also released kind of the individual segments as these short clips, which is quite nice, quite digestible. I think that's a good approach. And yeah, I did quite enjoy this one with a toy expert, a vintage toy expert, where they're both kind of examining these vintage toys. And the thing I like about these presenters is that they are generally kind of genuinely interested in this stuff and do have an actual passion for it. I just thought it was quite good as a first attempt. So yeah, it's good to see the Gadget Show back as a brand, and hopefully it maintains the kind of quality, but also the kind of down-to-earth nature of this initial offering. I quite enjoyed that. So, yeah, that's the Gadget Show podcast. I'll link to that if you want to go and give that a watch and a listen, and see Jason and Susie back on fine form as they were back in the 90s. You know those days when you just can't get your words out straight and can't talk about it? It's up here, but it doesn't want to come out here, and when those days coincide with me recording stuff, it's generally a recipe for disaster, and I can see that I've been recording for 50-odd minutes now, and this is going to take a lot of editing because I've had a lot of retakes, but we shall soldier on because we're getting towards the end, and it's the time that everyone looks forward to in the Reese Rambles podcast, and that is, of course, the video of the week, and all that stuff. And the video this week is a bit of shameless self-promotion because I am in it, although I haven't been really involved with the production of it at all. Had no idea that I was going to be in it until like the day before it was released, when I was contacted to ask if I could use some footage of mine. But these are awesome people. They're very good friends of mine. And of course, I was more than happy to be involved and very, very amused to see how they'd used my image as well. This is, of course, the Arcade Archive, and this is such a good video. So basically, this is Computer Space, which was the very first arcade game, I guess. I mean, obviously there were like pinball games and all that kind of stuff, but the very first kind of video game, arcade video game. And of course, it was made by Nolan Bushnell and Ted Dabney, who went on to found Atari. And yeah, this was Computer Space, which I actually saw. If you've seen my tour of the Pinball Hall of Fame in Las Vegas that I did last year, I actually got to see one of these machines in real life. Sadly, it wasn't working, but got some nice footage of it, of the kind of the cabinet itself and the control panel and everything else. And that's kind of what they initially asked me for. And Arcade Archive are basically they're based down in Stroud in Gloucestershire, and they're in the same building as Neil from RMC and the Renegade Retro Repair Service, which they're launching soon as part of this whole Retro Collective banner. Really, really big supporter of what they're doing down there. They've got this really kind of nice retro hub that's all kind of coming together. And Richard, the landlord, who actually kind of owns the building that they're based in, is a really big name in the 3D printing world. In fact, he actually wrote the book. He literally wrote the book on 3D printing. If you go out and buy 3D printing for dummies, he's actually the guy that wrote it. And he's taken on this project kind of behind their backs and not told them that he was doing this in his spare time. 3D printing a full-size replica of computer space. And the original cabinets, they were made by like a hot tub manufacturer in California. So they've got this lovely, curvy, sort of hand-molded quality to them. Fiberglass, full sort of fiberglass cabinet. And he's done an amazing job of this. I mean, obviously, I don't want to kind of spoil the video too much, but he goes through the whole process of how he kind of modelled it. Didn't have any sort of 3D scans or original measurements or anything like that, so he's kind of had to reverse engineer. I mean, these are very, they're very, very rare machines. Very difficult to get hands on with one. So he's kind of had to reverse engineer it all from, various photos and footage and stuff and kind of model it all himself. I mean, he knows what he's doing. And then he's 3D printed it in multiple parts and gone through the process of gluing it all together, essentially, to make this full-size arcade cabinet. And it's a 32-minute video, so I watched this on my TV at home, as I do with a lot of stuff, and I just thought it was fantastic. Regardless of the fact that I'm also in it. And we'll pause before we get to my bit because I don't want to spoil that. But highly, highly recommended if you haven't seen it. I will link to that, of course, down in the description and in the usual places. And the name of the channel is Arcade Archive, run by a really, really lovely chap called Alex, who is a wonderful guy, and I'm hoping to be working with on something else in another secret project in the near future. So go check it out. Great channel, great video. Nice to see that it's had over 21,000 views in 6 days. So great to see that video doing well as well, because it's a cool project. So that's my video of the week, and I hope you enjoy. So finally, one little piece of Atari news for you all, because I've got to do that Atari news. That's kind of my thing, isn't it? And yes, they have or will be releasing, I think this is already released on the Atari VCS. You know my thoughts on the Atari VCS and why I might not be very interested in that. But they've made a remake, a remaster, a reimagining, let's call it a reimagining because it is a whole new game, of Sprint. Of course, their arcade game from back in the day. Also available on a few other Atari platforms, of course. But fun game this. If you've ever played skid marks on the like the Amiga and those platforms back in the day, the gameplay will be very familiar to you. But of course, Sprint was the OG, and it had those big steering wheels on it on the arcade cab that you could frantically spin around, and loads of fun. This great game. It's coming out on the Xbox and the PlayStation and the Steam and Atari VCSs and all your other stuff. In fact, it's on GOG. It's on the Epic Game Store and Steam and the Switch. It's been released on everything, absolutely everything, and it looks cool. So just wanted to mention that just before we wrap things up. Of course, I'll link to that trailer and whatever else down in the usual places. But that's all from me for this week. Thank you ever so much for listening to this week's Ramble. We got there in the end, didn't we? So great to see. Go check out my latest release, of course, the Doom running on a desk video, and look forward to a bit of a follow up to that with some actual technical stuff in the very near future. And of course, there's that Patreon post as well with everything that I've released so far this year. If you want to go back and take a look at that, everything else that I've covered, of course, is linked in the usual places. I've said that 1,000 times now. I'm off to go and record some other stuff now, or maybe have some lunch. What time is it? My goodness, that's much later than I expected. That's it. Bye.